Hello class 1. We are going to do our beeswax lesson, but a little bit differently today. So I'm still in the classroom, but you're probably at home. I know that you've been given some beeswax to take home. I'm not sure what colours you received because everybody got something different, and I'm also not sure what you've used so far. So please just choose any colour that you would like today. And as we do before every story, we place the beeswax in the palm of our hands and cover it over with the other palm and keep it nice and warm and snug until the story's over. Our story today is called Trafalgar True. It's a little bit backwards, that writing, but the picture and the story. Trafalgar True, written by Stephen Cosgrove and illustrated by Robin James. Far, far away, in a time of dreams and make-believe, there was a small, curious country called Curium. Curium wasn't much as countries go. A small forest, a medium-sized meadow, and a twisting crystal stream. What made Curium very special was that right in the middle of the meadow lived a most magnificent winged dragon called Trafalgar True. Trafalgar didn't do much from one day to the next. He would sit and quietly watch the world go round. Trafalgar loved every living thing, and watching to him was the same as doing. Trafalgar would watch the flock of birds as they flew from tree to tree. He would watch a turtle or two as they crawled across the meadow. But most of all, he loved to watch the furry little creatures called kith and kin. There was very little difference between a kith and a kin. They both had long bushy tails and big brown eyes. In fact, the only difference was that kith's fur was black with a long white stripe down the middle, while the kin's fur was white with a black stripe down the middle. All day, every day, they would skitter about the forest playing games with one another in the happiest of ways, filling Trafalgar with love for them all. Everyone would have been happy to this very day if early one morning a piece of the sun had not fallen from the sky and landed right in the middle of Trafalgar's meadow. When the dust had settled, Trafalgar saw the most beautiful sunstone he had ever seen. The morning light danced and glittered from the stone, making everything seem a little brighter. It couldn't have been more than a moment or two before all the kith and kin had gathered around to gaze at the sunstone's beauty. They were oohing and ahhing at its brilliance when either a kith or a kin pushed somebody else to get a little closer. Soon, kith were pushing kin and kin were pushing kith. "Quit your pushing," snarled a fuzzy little king. "Stand back, in a minute I'll let you see my stone." "Your stone," growled the kith. "It landed on our side of the forest. The stone belongs to the kith." And so it went throughout the day, with the kin grumbling, the kith pushing, and Trafalgar watching in disbelief. The next day was the same, if not a little worse, as the kith and kin tossed insult after insult at one another. Why, one poor kith was even tripped as he walked down the path. As he picked himself up, he could hear laughter coming from the bushes around him. "Silly Kith," giggled the hidden kin. "They think the sunstone belongs to them when we all know it belongs to us." Then, laughing, they scampered off back to the meadow. Trafalgar True sat and watched unnoticed. Where before there was a pleasant little meadow filled with love, there was now nothing but a field of jealousy and bitterness. So saddened was he by this turn of events that large silver tears began to glide gracefully over his nose and fall softly onto the ground. It wasn't that the kith disliked the kin or that the kin disliked the kith. It was just that each wanted to own the brilliance of the sunstone, and neither knew how to share. All day long there was pushing and shoving as they tried to be the closest to the brilliant stone. The kith became so frustrated that later that very same day, they threw a vine over the stone and tried to drag it away. The kin, not to be outdone, threw a vine from the other side, and the two groups pulled and tugged for nearly 3 hours before they all collapsed. In fact, they were so tired from all that pushing and pulling that they fell fast asleep right there in the meadow. All, that is, save for one baby kin, who stood before the stone and softly cried, "I don't like you, sunstone. You're so pretty, but all you have brought is sadness, and I wish you would go back to the sun." No one heard the child except the stone and a silent figure who watched from beneath a tree, Trafalgar True. A saddened and troubled Trafalgar thought and thought throughout the night. Just before dawn, he knew what he had to do. He quietly flexed his wings once or twice, then gently flew to the magnificent stone. With all his might, he clutched the sunstone firmly in his arms and began to fly towards the sun as the morning light was just breaking through the trees. The morning air was filled with soft sighs as the kith and kin woke from their sleep and gently rubbed their eyes. Suddenly someone shouted, "It's gone! The kith stole the sunstone!" "No," cried the kith, "it was the kin." With that they began shoving and shouting, and a kin even pulled a kith's tail. There would have been a terrible fight if it had not been for someone who looked up and saw Trafalgar high in the sky. "Look, it's Trafalgar True. He's got the stone." "Oh no," cried the baby kin. "Trafalgar is trying to fly the stone back to the sun." As the kith and kin gazed into the sky, they realised what they had done. "But he won't survive," they moaned. "We've got to stop him." They all looked at one another, trying desperately to think of a way to reach Trafalgar. Suddenly, one furry kith snapped his fingers and said, "I know! We must all shout together. With all of our voices united, he will surely hear us. Together they formed a circle, and while holding hands began to shout, "Trafalgar! Trafalgar!" For a moment it looked as though the plan was going to fail, but then Trafalgar heard the echo of his name. He slowly turned in the sky and looked down on the creatures below. "You cannot fly to the sun, for if you do, you will surely not survive," they cried. "Our selfishness and greed has almost destroyed you as well as our friendship. Please come back." Trafalgar smiled softly and then began to gently glide back to the land of Curium. From that time forward, kith and kin shared and shared alike in the meadows of Curium. They would play around the sunstone in the happiest of ways, filling Trafalgar with love for them all. So when it comes to sharing with kith and kin or you, remember what you're sharing is the love of Trafalgar True. So, what are we creating today? I know that you can all have a guess, but I can't see who's putting their hand up, so I'll just tell you. Today, we are going to create Trafalgar True. Now, this is going to be difficult. Here is what he looks like. So we see we have a dragon type with a big body, a long neck, a long snout, a long tail, and big long legs, and little wings. It will be tricky, but we can do it. I know we can. So roll your beeswax into a ball, as we always do. It should be nice and soft now from being in the palms of your hands. And as we get that ball created, we are going to form Trafalgar True out of it. Starting with the body. Here's my ball. And I start with the body. And I'm going to draw out a long neck. But I need enough drawn out so that I can have the head as well. I draw it out from the body, draw it out until I start to get my neck and my head and my little snout. And then my one is going to be sitting. I'm not going to do too much with the legs, but just a gesture that there are legs there. A little gesture of legs. I work with that on both sides because Trafalgar has legs on both sides, one on each side. So he's sitting with his legs. His snout, we don't want it too beak-like, we want it to be definitely more like a dragon. And then he has little wings that come out, and he has a long tail. We can't forget the long tail. So I'm just starting to give it shape. My little Trafalgar, and out comes his tail. His tail is rather long, We squeeze enough wax out that we can have a nice long tail that wraps around his body. Keep working with it until you can get the beautiful image of Trafalgar True coming through. Work as slowly as you want. You don't need to rush this. I'm moving a little bit quickly, but you don't need to. You can take as much time as you like to make your beautiful Trafalgar True. For his heart was so beautiful, wasn't it? What a gentle dragon. There's my little dragon starting to form. It's very tricky with beeswax. And I know that you will do such a wonderful job of it every time you create one. And I can't wait to see what yours looks like. So please, if you would like, you can get your mum or dad to take a photo of your Trafalgar True and send it to me. Your mum or dad will know how to do that. Okay, I'll leave you to go on with it, and I'll see you next week for your next beeswax lesson. Bye, have fun.